AI, artificial intelligence, is having quite a moment, right? It's springtime for AI. We've seen chatbots acing the college board exams. We've seen them coding apps from scratch, writing bad poetry in astonishing velocity. On image generation, I'm not sure if you can see some of these slides. We've sort of vaulted that uncanny valley, and we're getting photorealistic images with a dozen words or less in the prompt. In audio, the hit Drake single was not written, sung, or authorized by Drake, right? It feels like the time has arrived for generative AI. And so in that context, it's a little endearing to see the title of this talk, Will Generative AI Transform Marketing and Advertising? Feels a little innocent, right? Almost endearing. It's a message from 2 months ago, but it's a question from another era. How could it possibly not, right? So for that, I wanted to throw it to someone for whom this may look like cheap parlor tricks, because she's been working on the coalface of the AA minds for years now. Daniela, how is generative AI already changing the marketing business? Let's start there.
So, generative AI, we actually are living the summer of AI. We came from a long spring of like 10 years of spring to now living the summer of AI. Generative AI is a technology that requires 175 billion parameters to operate. Just for example, on ChatGPT language models. The way this is impacting marketing and advertising is one of the most interesting use cases, because it's all about content generation. So everything from blog posts, use cases, studies, anything that requires, even websites creation, website translation to other languages, image manipulation, video manipulation, and even behind the scenes on the HTML in code, you now can actually, from natural language processing, have the output of programming language. All of these areas, I mean, this is a no-brainer for advertising. That said, we are using it too, but it takes you to 65% of completion. There's always a human in the loop required to complete and add the personal touch of the brand.
That's interesting. And Fernando, you've recently joined NotCo, where I know AI is driving the hard science of the product itself, right? Replacing the flavors of dairy and meat with without animal products. So how much of NotCo's marketing, on the consumer side, is also driven by AI?
Yeah. Mudança de microfone, obrigado. Bom dia para todo mundo no Rio, um prazer estar aqui. Eu sou carioca, estou super feliz de estar aqui. Switching to English. I will build on what she said, you know what I mean? Like, I think that we've been using AI for quite some time, even before my time on NotCo. Like, we always use AI to do optimization of assets, targeting of people in performance marketing. There are several uses of AI, even to create ideas for assets, and then, as you said, 65%, and then another 35% is the guys who are sitting there to make the asset relevant and unique to the brand that you have. At NotCo, let's not forget that marketing, if you go back to Philip Kotler, like there are 4 Ps, right? One is product, and at NotCo, we use AI to create our products. Basically, like we believe that by using AI as a tool, by partnering with AI, we can create better products. So we analyze animally derived products, and we create a version that's plant-based of those products. And because of that, because AI is so centric to our business, like we also try to use AI in communication. I've seen lots of like brands tap into AI because it's a hot space, and that's great. But I think in our case, AI is centric to the business. So when we use in terms of advertising, we also use to make a point that we use AI to create the products. So we have like lots of ideas that we've been playing around, but again, it's AI as a tool, right? I mean, it's not like full delegation to AI in terms of advertising and communication.
And like any tool, right, it brings efficiency. It allows you enormous volume and speed. I'd love to hear a little bit more about that.
Yeah.
Like anything else, you can do more with fewer hands. And I can imagine for a lot of the creatives in the audience, they're wondering how much more and how many fewer hands. What's your rule of thumb?
Yeah, like look, I mean, so far it's the same number of hands. We just do more and we just do better. You know, like I remember when I started to work, I had to wear a tie and we didn't have emails. And we worked like really hard and we were able to accomplish a certain volume of things. I think it's kind of the same now, you know what I mean? Like maybe in a different industry, in a different brand, maybe different. But in my case, I don't see us reducing people necessarily or AI stealing the jobs of people. I think it's a new technology that's a tool that new jobs will, I think that I would love to see more people putting on their CV, I'm a prompter, right? I mean, like that didn't exist like a year ago. And I have to learn those things too. I have more hours in Midjourney than I would like to confess. Same with ChatGPT. But it's more like to create a stimulus, to do more, to do better. So far, at least in my company, in our industry, it was not about, oh, now that we have Midjourney, let's cut people. That was really not like how it worked.
And Daniela, you mentioned this kind of this rule of thumb, 65%, 35%, more or less. Is that sort of how you think about it? There's always going to be a third of the workflow that's essentially human?
I think that depends use case by use case and on the development stage of the technology. Right now, in text, that's what it's looking like. In speech, in speech recognition, we are right now at solid 80% of accuracy of the systems, and depending on the noisy conditions, like this situation here would be horrible for a speech recognition system with the background noise, but depending on the noisy conditions, you can actually get to the 90% of accuracy, word level and above. It really depends on the use case. So, and on the maturity of the technology. So, but one other super interesting case for marketing is conversational AI. And especially when conversational AI is decoupled into avatar that is so before you have any interaction with customer support, you used to call a number, go through an IVR and push some buttons, and that was a decision tree. Now you can speak in a conversation to a machine, and you can add an image, you can add a visual avatar that can go anything from a 2D, 3D, even 4D, half a body hologram. So that combined with voice and branding, I agree with Fernando, we're not cutting, we're expanding the content generation so much further. That's what it is.
But you make me wonder, you know, is the avatar, is it one avatar for the brand, or is it an individual avatar, you know, based on the user as they log in? This is one of the promises of AI, is infinitely personalizable voices, copy, campaigns, right?
Totally, totally. To the audience you're reaching. If you are aiming a crowd of an audience of 13 to 18 years old, they don't want to see an avatar that looks like they are their mothers. They want to see someone that relates to them. So that's exactly right. You can actually get to that level of personalization to your audience.
And at what point do we start running into some questions, right, about privacy, about the biases we're bringing along when we analyze the individual? Where do you start running into issues with data privacy, over personalization, a level of bias or kind of bubble where you lose the brand identity, you lose the voice of the institution?
So the bias issue is something that is very dear to me because we are the largest marketplace of training data for AI ethically sourced. So we're all about data that is transparent. Sometimes it needs to be biased to precisely fill the gap of a model that doesn't address, for example, females or people of color or one of those things. So the personalization to, well, first of all, the model needs to represent in the data the audience that is going to target. And all of us heard all the terrible use cases and bad press that certain Fortune 5 companies had while they were building so all the algorithmic bias and so on, while they were building and strengthening, for example, image search at Google or even keyword search, voice search. So the point is this personalization is really bringing the right, we actually are getting more data than we want, or we're giving away more data than we want in the freemium products, but that's every impression you click on, every time you spend on your phone on freemium products are getting all the information about you and will feed you, and this is advertising. This is not even generative AI, this is AI personalized, whether it delivers you the content or knows everything about you to deliver the content that you are.
This is the back end AI, right? Already working huge data sets. I mean, I'll throw the next tricky question to you, Fernando, because once we start getting into generative AI, there's this question that will spawn 1,000 lawsuits, right? Who owns an idea created by a machine? Is it the owner of the machine? Is it the data set on which it was created? Is it the prompter? Is it how do you make sense of this kind of new territory?
I think that like every time a new technology appears, it's not really new, but like every time there is a paradigm shift in terms of technology, it's very common, right, that we need to figure out the legislation around it, what are the negative side effects of it. It's not just with AI. Social media is the same thing. The fact that everyone has a camera this day, that brings with it like some privacy issues in itself, right? That maybe 100 years ago, no one would think about that. So it's very common, and it's still new territory, right? I mean, I live in the U.S. The answer to your question in the US is depends on the state, depends where the content was posted, depends on who the audience that saw the content and where it was posted. Is really like complicated. There is no.
Here's one, right? The prompt is give me a portrait of Harry Potter in a Wes Anderson style. So who owns? Does J.K. Rowling have a claim?
Yeah.
Does Daniel Radcliffe have anything to say about that? Does Wes Anderson enter into the conversation at any point?
Yeah, I can give you my opinion, but like I'm not a legislator, but I think that it depends on the prompt. Like if the prompt said Harry Potter, you are infringing copyright because you knew exactly what you were asking for. If the prompt said Wes Anderson, then you are infringing that copyright. But that's just my view. Right? If it were like, hey, give me a picture of a young adult in a beautiful church, then I think that is less copyrightable. But again, this is just my point of view.
Daniela, you work with a lot of these questions, right? But, what is the difference between an artist, a person who's inspired by prior work in the world, and a machine that is trained on that work as a data set?
So we are in the forefront of the ethic of the data copyright, the copyrights of the data, the consent, the paid for the data. Even copyright material is okay as long as you pay the copyrights to the owner to the artist, to the content creator. Everything is fine except that people. If you pay, if you go talk to whoever created, and that's what we do, podcast creators, artists, and then the result of it's a new concept, it's a mesh depending on technology. But the problem is it's not happening. You see Stable Diffusion, Midjourney, OpenAI, everything so far, because it's so new and it's not being properly guardrailed, no one is getting paid for. And this is well, we're working on the legislation forefront with within several organizations, World Economic Forum, Consumer Technology Association. I was part of the NAIR task force in the US, which is the AI strategy of the country for US, and to basically move these regulations in. We are getting there, but it's been still a wild west here.
Who's furthest along right now? Is it going to be like the GDPR? Is Europe going to take the front, the first step as they did with data privacy? Do you see the U.S. moving fast enough? Is China always going to be the Wild West? What's your sense of the pace?
I think Europe is taking the lead in the regulation, but with very few foundational use cases, because there's not enough AI development in Europe. Whereas in the US, you have right now a huge media attention over everything of these matters, more and more. I mean, there's a VentureBeat article that came out last week about precisely how shocking it is that even your style, your Brad, if you ask OpenAI or one of those technologies to write an article on your style, it will be very, very close to it. And so, but nobody is asking you, can I pay you a royalty for your work that is training my model? So this is what we're working on. So there's a lot more media attention in the US, a lot more push in Europe, but without the foundation yet.
That's interesting. Fernando, since we're talking about tools, right? We're sort of naming, there's some obviously first movers in that free trial space. They got a lot of attention, right? GPT, Mid-Journey, DALL-E 2. Now, there's others, where we've seen Microsoft with Bing try to bring that into their product. Adobe Firefly trying to kind of, win some territory with video as well. In your workflows, which are the ones that you've been using longest, and which were the ones that you think are maybe most promising?
I think we explore all of them. If I think about the campaigns that we've done, concrete stuff, like I think Mid-Journey probably like the number one. We just did a campaign on Mid-Journey, like for NotCo, where, I mean, if you think about it, if you ever seen like an old pig or an old cow or an old chicken, it's hard to think of that because usually in the food industry they live much shorter than what their normal lifespan is. And because we use AI to create the products, we use AI to imagine, which is the prompt from Mid-Journey, these animals old. So again, it's an idea that ties really well with the product and with the business that we do, and Mid-Journey was the perfect tool to do that. I do think that like the agencies are using ChatGPT, Wall-E, like all this stuff, DALL-E to ideate, which doesn't mean that will be the final output of their work, but I think it really opens doors, when you ask someone who is not sitting there with you to imagine something. So yeah, we've been using quite a bit. I think in our case because it makes sense, because the company is fundamentally based on AI.
And now I want to push us into the dicier terrain, right? Maybe a little closer to the event horizon, right? We've talked about AI as just another tool that's gonna kind of push us, make us more capable, right? Let the machines do the busy work, let the people think and strategize, be creative, as if that is something inherently human. How soon before it's machines prompting machines? How if you had to think about, where would you put that horizon? I don't know if Daniela has stronger feelings about this one.
Well, there's several philosophers and researchers that divide the phases of AI in 9 or 10. I like to look at them in 3. The narrow AI, so artificial narrow intelligence, which is what we've been living so far. It's your Siris on your phone. It's your Google Maps sending you places. It's your Netflix showing you recommendations for your tastes, or Amazon sending you related articles on the shoes that you're looking at. That is narrow AI. I believe we just crossed the milestone of AGI, artificial general AI, or artificial general intelligence, which is when the computer is as smart as humans. I mean, we can see now, we can see all these conversions, text to speech, text to image, text to video, text to code, text to music. All of these multimodal transfers are as smart as we humans think. And if you had asked me this a year ago, I would have said, oh my God, we are like 10 years, 20 years far out from this moment that just accelerated right now. When we get to the prompted engineering responded by machines and all the AI feeding itself, that is the ASI, artificial smart intelligence, and that is when supposedly computers are smarter than us, are sentient, they become emotional, they have feelings, and that is the scary moment. I never thought to leave so quickly, this acceleration so quickly.
The point of no return. What do you think, Fernando? When you think, I mean, thinking forward, right? We've been talking a lot about already the tough questions, you know, the impressive output, you know, what is happening. When you think about what is next, where do you see the greatest potential? You know, what is shifting forward for you on that timeline?
Yeah, like I completely agree with what she just said. To me, it was about curation of content. I mean, AI behind social media and all that stuff. Now it's a bit more like of creation of content, and that's why we are seeing these images. Like, I'm not the best at predicting long-term future. You know, like I remember when a friend of mine came to me and said, hey, there is this new social media, it's really cool. You can put 140 characters and that's it. And I was like, what a stupid idea. That's never going to work. So I don't know, you know, like I think that it will continue to evolve faster than we think it will. I remember when there was a prediction of when AI would be able to beat a human in chess, and it was wrong because it did beat a human in chess much earlier than the prediction imagined. I remember when there was a prediction of when AI would be able to compose a song that's difficult to spot whether it's human or machine, and that again was much earlier than what it was predicted. So I don't know if it's emotion, I don't know if it's infinite times smarter than a human, not just, because I think that when it hits that tipping point, that it can feed itself, it's exponential in a way that is very hard to envision, right? I mean, it's not just the smartest human, it's like...
And it gets at the center of, I know this question has been there, you know, in advertising, as with any creative endeavor, right?
Yeah.
How much of what we do is science and how much is art? And is there a difference? Do you feel fundamentally that there is just a line that can't be crossed?
I don't think there is a line that cannot be crossed, to be honest with you. And I think it's a very philosophical debate that probably involves religion and what are your beliefs as a human being. But I think there is no line that can't be crossed, you know, because it's the same as you asking the person back in the day when a machine is going to beat the world champion of chess. Like, what? No, that's never going to happen, right? So that would be the same as if I were saying there is no line that can't be crossed. I am a hopeless optimistic person. So I would like to believe that we'll be able to improve healthcare exponentially. And that we are going to look at healthcare today and think how outdated it was, just like when we look what healthcare was 50 years ago or 100 years ago, right? I hope that many of the issues that we have when it comes to sustainability, AI will be able to help us solve. You know, like I can go on and on and on with a list of problems that we humans were not able to solve. So maybe in partnership with AI, we'll be able to do that. But I know that can be a scary question, and I know that probably no one has the right answer because it's very hard to predict. Maybe an AI will be able to answer that one.
Maybe. So given that sort of scary, unpredictable future, Daniela, if you had to, I mean, for someone in the advertising industry, right? Someone looking at that sort of daunting future, what would you say are the kind of the core competencies or the key tools, the key skills that someone's going to have to thrive in the era of artificial intelligence?
I feel like nobody's really ready right now for AI, especially because it hit us in the face so fast. I would just say in the daunting world that is so big of AI, let's try to focus on one problem at a time and really go deep and master that, because there's already a lot that you can build on, tools and models and open source, and we don't need to know everything that is behind the scenes that's going on. Just focus on your problem. But I am an optimist. I've been always an optimist of AI, and for the first time a little concerned about what we can do with it if it's not guardrailed properly.
With that, thanks again, Fernando, Daniela. Thanks to all of you for the time. Fascinating conversation.